Oh, hello, and welcome to Al Dente Rigamortis. I'm Review Cultist.
I'm Mikey, the stands for evil.
And I'm the gamer in yellow.
And we're here to discuss those internet stories, most creepy and most pasta, and be critically silly doing it. And tonight we have assistant to Doctor, assistant to Mr. Hastings. So, assistant to Mr. Hastings is by SerenaWrites, which we've done some of her stories in the past couple of weeks, actually. This actually came as another suggestion from her via an email. So, we're going to cover this one, and it has a sequel that we're going to cover next week. So, look forward to that. But before we get too far ahead of ourselves, let's give our initial recommendations. I'm going to recommend it.
I am not going to recommend it.
Interesting.
I am not going to recommend it as well.
Further interesting.
Further.
Well, let's find out why one of us gave it a recommendation, the others did not give it a recommendation.
Maybe you'll sway us to the side of the light, or we'll drag you down in the darkness with us.
Into the deepest, darkest pits of hell. Yes, let's find out. Starting with the rundown. So, the story follows the POV of Valerie Lewis, the assistant to a terrible but infamous movie actor, Eric Hastings III, who comes from a line of prominent actors named Eric Hastings, and she utterly hates it. She took the job on the deathbed of Eric's grandfather, Eric Sr., presumably because no one else would, and he sensed a kindness in Val that he wished to impart on his shitty grandson. Also, she'd get a fortune if she could keep him alive long enough. You see, the Hastings have a secret. Eric Hastings Jr., the third's dad, and Eric the third himself have a craving that is vital to their existence.
I'm going to let you finish.
Okay.
He's not his dad.
Hmm?
There's Eric Hastings Sr., Eric Hastings Jr., and Eric Hastings the third.
Yeah.
The third is the asshole that we're following.
Yes.
Senior
No, you're right.
is the one that died on the deathbed, and Valerie said that she would take care of his grandson.
Yes.
Who is the third.
Yeah, I know.
Okay, because I'm pretty sure multiple times you said that the one that she works for is the son of the guy that she said that she would protect him.
Okay, sorry, I meant the grandson. No,
Yes.
I even have it as like his shitty grandson.
Yes, you said that one time, but all the further times, I'm pretty sure.
And then
one
on
of
the
us
deathbed
misheard
of
it.
Eric's
It's fine.
grandfather in my notes here that I read. Okay, yeah.
Oh,
So
man.
yeah. Okay. One of us is either not interpreting properly or not listening properly.
What?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, okay.
I'm not saying you've also had a bad habit of doing that to me this last couple of weeks.
Did I?
Yeah.
I don't recall that.
Anyway, so yeah, the Hastings have a secret. Eric Hastings Jr. and Eric Hastings III have a craving for human flesh, and they must feed every 2 weeks, or bad things happen. Like the late Eric Hastings Jr., the third's dad, apparently exploded into gore when his handler wouldn't fulfill the requirement of being his assistant. So now, an accomplice to all these terrible things, Val finds people when the time comes and lures them to wherever Eric wants to feed, and then cleans up the mess after, while being creeped on by a predatory Eric III after he's fed. She does try to lure dirtbags and human scum, but it's still taking its toll on her soul.
I really thought you said derp bags.
Well, I mean, also dirtbags.
Yeah.
They're, yeah. This time around, she happens to find a super fan of Eric and his movies, and they soon arrive at Eric's mansion, where Val introduces the fan to his favorite star and then goes to the bathroom to disrobe, apparently as a way to placate Eric into not feeding on her afterward. At least that's what it seems like it's insinuated. Bob, the fan, tries to escape after the first few bites, and Val stops him dead, literally, tripping him and Bob breaking his neck on the floor. Eric finishes the job, and while Val is beginning to break down from the horrific situation she finds herself working in, he thanks her, seemingly sincerely, for her work and offers to share what's left of Bob, to which Val agrees. She then decides that she loves Eric, and the story comes to a close. Finn? So that was assistant to Mr. Hastings. So I suppose we'll move on to everyone tolerates the grammar inquisitions at this point. So honestly, I don't have much in the way of a grammar that peeved me off, or like issues with the grammar that peeved me off. I kept an eye out for the tense situation in the story because it seemed like it was predominantly a present tense. But honestly, nothing bothered me too badly on that front to merit spotlighting here. So, Mikey, the E stands for evil. What do you have?
I have Exjunction Junction.
All right.
And next stop, Conjunction Junction. Doot, doot.
So, a bit of background knowledge about me. My name is Valerie Lewis. Because I'm the personal handler for the feral beast that is Mr. Hastings, it almost made me forget I had spent the last 2 hours scrubbing his pee out of his carpet. It made me more angry. So, I'm sure you probably guessed what he needs by now. It's nice. And here I am, stuck with the guy who jerks off to my tits after he eats someone. It took insurmountable restraint to tell him that's why it's my favorite. It actually did look nice. But it keeps Eric from doing worse than murder. It dripped onto the floor with the same force as Bob's head. Finn.
Wow. I really got nothing.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. Although I'm gonna possibly fight you on one of them. Because I'm the personal handler for the feral beast that is Mr. Hastings. I'm looking at the paragraph right now. You do need context to what, like, to the sentence right before that, because it's a question. Why do I matter? Because I'm the personal handler to the feral beast that is blah, blah. So it's like she is answering something with that sentence. So like that one's kind of gets a pass, I feel.
Yeah,
No,
probably.
because you could
Or not.
rewrite it without the because at the beginning.
How
How
would you do it?
answer it?
Yeah.
Like you'd answer any question by stating the beginning of the question and the answer.
But she repeats the question, like, why do I matter? Oh, like, look, why do I matter? I matter because, like, that.
Yeah.
But like that, then you fall into the trap of, like, they mostly come at night, mostly.
Yeah, it's all repetitive.
That one I'm gonna fight you on a little bit.
I still think it needs to be changed.
All right, agree to disagree, I guess. But yeah, okay. And the reason Mikey does do these things
Is because he's highlighting all the sentences in his story that start with words that they probably shouldn't, like it's, ands, or buts, or because sometimes, because there's always better words to use.
sometimes.
Mostly.
They mostly. Yeah. All right. So onto the grammar in yellow with Gamer.
No.
Okay.
On to notes, because I don't have any.
Indeed. On to actual thoughts. So I'm going to start with this one here. He assigned me to be Eric's caretaker when he turned 35. If I managed to keep him from an early grave, I would receive his entire fortune. At the time, it sounded easy. Fast forward to now, and I'm now witnessing the carnage Eric left in his trailer. Okay, so one thing, actually, I guess this is kind of blending in from Grammar Inquisition that I said I didn't have, but I also have a bunch of stuff in this regarding like actual thoughts. First thing here, she receives his entire fortune. Is that Eric Senior's entire fortune or the third's entire fortune?
Yeah,
Like
it's hard to tell.
I assume it's Senior's, honestly, but
Yeah, because he didn't really have anyone to leave it to. So this is set up like a movie where you have to do this ridiculous thing to get all this money.
Yeah, that like you have to sleep in the house for a night in order to own it.
Exactly. Yeah. Also, is it when he turned 35 or till he turned 35? Because I recall that Eric Jr. Eric III's father, Eric Jr. Died on his 35th birthday. So is there some significance to this? Like, are they more, or do they stabilize at a certain age, and so they don't need to have to worry about like being fed constantly?
Or they just live till 35. There's nothing you can do about it. He will explode at 35, and at that point, he has nowhere else to give his money. So it's going to go to her.
Yeah, in which case, Eric III's money goes to Val.
Mm.
Yeah, like I was like,
He said, how old is Senior? Was he 35?
Well, I don't. Yeah, and here's the other thing: does Senior have? Well, and this also kind of goes into like another part of this whole like rabbit hole I fell down. I have like a cork board and everything.
Yeah.
Is like because at first I was like, is this like Covenant, like the movie Covenant, where like the witch boys like their power stabilizes at a certain age? So like she just has to wait that out, and then she gets like Senior's money, or like does she just have to like keep Eric III alive till his 35th when he dies, and as long as she's not like culpable to it, she gets his fortune, that of Eric III's. But then I get down to this part where it's like, a thought literally hit me as I was taking down these notes for this episode. What if the Eric Hastings line is like the Doctor, like Doctor Who mixed with Charles Dexter Ward from Lovecraft, where Eric Sr., Eric Jr., and now Eric III are all the same person. And something happens around their 35th birthday, or just if they die, they come back like a cannibalistic gore phoenix. And like the money, the fortune that like the caretaker gets isn't actually like their full fortune. It's just like a good chunk, or like just like basically their previous incarnation's fortune as they like use their backup or something.
Problem with that logic is the grandfather and the grandson were alive at the same time. The grandfather, the grandson, and the son were all alive simultaneously.
Yeah, unless the grandson wasn't around before that, and it was just like, or just like because Senior had put out this legend, or this sort of like this front that he had a grandson and he had a son.
Grandson is a well-known actor that a bunch of people already know.
Yeah, I don't actually believe this theory wholeheartedly, but like,
okay,
it just had me like thinking about it. It's like, because it's like there's this whole thing like of like the same names, rich asshole celebrities, and how there's a bunch of shit around that with like Hollywood, and like actors in Hollywood, like they can sometimes like be interpreted as like monsters because like they're all like shitty, and or like they're often like very like pretentious and like rich snobby and like monsters. And then like the whole age 35 thing, because like she has to wait till like till or when he turns 35, and then like his dad, the third's dad died at 35, so is 35 a special number for some reason? Again, it had me just like throwing up this like whole cork board with strings of like, but I don't like I have the tinfoil hat half on because I don't fully buy my own shit. But I'm curious. It's just like, is there some deeper meaning here, like the gun in the previous story?
I think the closest you're going to get is it's potentially like a hive mind situation where it's not one consciousness. It is one consciousness like spread amongst the three people. It's not that one person dies and is reincarnated as another person, because that can't work.
Yeah. Okay.
Who knows?
perhaps we'll find some more clues or like some more answers toward the origin or the nature of this whole situation in the sequel.
Mm-hmm.
But I'll move on to the next thing I have. Sorry. Hey, I was wondering if you could find some food for me tonight. You know, it's my time. I froze for a second. Eric, I thought it wasn't till next week. Eric's chuckle turned into a full-blown laugh. You're always so punctual, yet you always seem to forget this. It's not that I'm forgetful. I just hate this. So there it is. So as I was reading the story and I got to this point, and then like we got to this whole like thing is like where Eric needs her to get something. I was like, and here's where the horror is actually starts peeking in. Because I was like trying to figure out what the story was going to be, and then I got the impression. Now I'm getting at this point in the story, you get this impression. I was like, oh, it's going to be my monster's keeper sort of thing. Like, and it was like, is Eric a vampire or something? And then an update, it's like not quite a vampire. I'd say more like a ghoul, or perhaps just like a cannibalistic fiend of some sort. But yeah, I just like that. Like,
as it turns out, just not even cannibalistic fiend, just a cannibal.
Well, a cannibal. Yeah, a cannibal with a curse of some kind. Like, there's some kind of like weird, like supernatural aspect to it, because like something bad will happen to him if he doesn't feed. So, though we don't really quite know what exactly, because like no one actually saw what happened to Eric Jr., but his body was just like all over like bits of him were all over the place and like splayed with blood in his room when he didn't have food.
Yeah, he could just be going nuts and like going on a murder rampage and then like TNT himself or something.
Or even it's Pizza the Hut. He ate himself to death.
Possibly.
Like that's why he just ripped himself apart.
Yep.
Yeah. He just starts if he doesn't eat like somebody, he just auto cannibalizes. I love and hate that that's a word in the dictionary.
Yeah.
Auto cannibalism. Moving on though. He used to ask me to bring him horrors as well, but this was my compromise. No way in hell am I letting him do whatever he planned to do to them. The food is enough emotional weight on me. So I like Valerie's fraying moral code in the story. Like, she's not willing to subject people who don't deserve a terrible end like this. And like those people who are socially like already in a rough spot, like prostitutes and stuff like that, or like people who have families kind of thing. Like she's not willing to like, she doesn't want to like give up innocence to the whole thing, but she's like, man, she's able to like compromise by like giving him like the shittiest of human beings.
What was wrong with Bob though? Nothing. Bob was just some random like dude bro.
To be fair, we know a Bob in our group of friends.
Yeah.
I wouldn't like but like on the outside, yeah. On the inside, like knowing that person, that kind of person, yeah, it's a shitty deal. And even like in the story, as she gets to hear a little bit more about Bob, she has regrets about giving Bob to Eric. But yeah, I'm not saying like she's like a completely good person for doing this, but like you can, she's basically a Renfield to Eric's Dracula, with a tarnishing of like a very heavily tarnished heart of gold. Like she's trying, but she's still human. So she's like, it's not.
She's
enough.
Still a horrible human being because she's committing all these atrocities for money.
Yeah, I'm not saying
it's the equivalent of a mercenary or a hitman or contract killer.
Yeah, I'm not saying she's an angel or anything like that, but I'm saying like at least she like it's cool. It's cool to see her like her fraying morality in the story.
Mm-hmm.
But I'll move on to the next thing I have. His loss was a major one. His loss was a major one. He starred in some of the biggest films in the early 2000s, including the cult classic Batman vs. Cornelius Stirk, the intensely horrific masterpiece The Devil's Appetite Knows No Bounds, and an Oscar-winning performance in Choke. So, first off, I had to look up if Cornelius Stirk was an actual Batman villain, and he is.
Oh, really?
Yeah. But secondly, I was wondering how the story was going to tackle a character or a line of characters who are fictional, but in this story are popular and even famous like actors. And I like how it ventures into a sort of like alternate universe of Hollywood stardom. So like, or just basically gives us like a world, like it's our world, but this fictional actor family exists. Like this is basically like the Cannibal Baldwins.
But it is more alternate because like those movies don't exist. It's
Yeah,
not
well-
like they're like he did great as the Riddler in Batman Forever. Like,
That's
no.
true. Yeah. No, it's an alternate universe version of our world, like, or it's a fictionalized version of our world, like, but it helps ground it in our world because like we get most of it, and then they're able to add a few details that are different.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I liked that. I appreciated that because I was curious like how that was going to be handled in the story.
Yeah, that is a good way of doing it for sure.
Yeah, especially since the next story is like it feels like it's talking more about like public events, like the award goes to, I think, or something like that. So like Eric's getting possibly getting an award in the next story. So yeah, the fact that the story is, like I've been saying, tied into an alternate universe version of our own world, it helps tie it in, but also like they can play with that world a little bit. So
It's more freedom.
Yeah. But I'll move on to the next thing here. This one's definitely critically silly. Sir, I yelled back. He turned around. What? I stepped back. Do you want to me? Spit it out already. I gulped. Do you want to meet a celebrity? He leaned in. Huh? Do you want to meet a celebrity? Do you want to meet a showman?
Wow.
Sorry, this was stuck in my brain, and I had to pluck it out and put it onto paper or into my notes so I could like share that with the world. Also, I suppose later on it would actually end up being like as she's in the bathroom, it's like, do you want to eat a dumb fan?
Yeah.
But
So
yeah,
you're making her into a Disney princess now from cannibalism.
yeah, the best Disney film.
Yeah, I don't know about that.
I would love to see Disney try to pull off a cannibalistic horror movie with Disney princesses.
For some reason, I don't think they'll pull that. I don't think they'll take that.
I don't know. There
I don't
was
know why.
talk
It might
that they-
damage their their characters a little bit somehow.
Maybe. I don't know. We'll just have to wait like 50, 60 years when their copyrights go down, and then as soon as the copyrights for all the Disney princesses are expired, somebody's going to have a horror movie already in the salvo.
Yeah, pretty much.
Like that's what happened with with Mickey, with the earliest interpretations of Mickey Mouse this year, like either this year or last year. One day after Mickey Mouse, like the original Steamboat Willie Mickey Mouse was expired from copyright, somebody already had a slasher movie ready.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Nice.
But I digress. I'll move on to the next thing I have here. My breasts weren't an ideal size, and my ginger hair doesn't look as good down there, doesn't look as good down there as it does on my head. But it keeps Eric from doing worse than murder. Oh, I don't like what this is insinuating.
Did you see the not safe for work at the start?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah.
And I don't mean this necessarily in a bad way because this is a fucking horror story. So like, there's going to be some disturbing shit. But like earlier when Valerie's explaining her cleanup duties after Eric's feeding and Eric watches, I did get like there's like a pervy predatory vibe from Eric on that, but it was subtle. It doesn't it wasn't like too bad, but like
Mikey literally read a line where he JO's her.
Yeah, that is true. Yeah, but it's like again, like I like it started off like it started escalating, I guess. There's escalation. And just like, like this is just like very like getting creepier and creepier as it goes. And like this was darkly and morbidly humorous throughout the story. Like what with Val's current macabre toiling with her employer or like for her employer. And up until now, like it was like for me, it was kind of a quirky horror, with like basically the Renfield having to help like their Dracula, but then like shit suddenly like hit the fan in terms of like Valerie's like job role here. I was like, oh shit, like like suddenly like feel a lot more anxiety for her well-being.
Suddenly we're in Nebraska.
Yeah, exactly. We went from like I'm trying to think of like a Mel Brooks. We went from like not Mel Brooks film, but like a quirky like silly thing to like then suddenly Nebraska. Oops,
Yeah.
Nebraska. And I don't like this doesn't mean I hate it or hate the story or anything like that. It like because it's a horror story, it's going to have some dark shit. But the shift in tone just like took me by surprise suddenly with that for some reason.
Yeah.
Like the story does a good job at making Valerie, for me anyway, likable off the hop, or at least like as likable as you can for, again, like a very morally gray, seeping into dark sort of like character. Like this is all despite her circumstances and role in all this, but when the implication of her own like personal well-being or even like her being personally humiliated or in danger suddenly caused me like to be nervous and anxious about the situation. In a good way, I suppose, for the story, because it made me like actually care about the character. But I'll move on to the next thing I have. Speaking of characters that made me care and such, hey Valerie, help! He screamed. I said nothing and stuck my foot out. He tripped, falling and breaking his neck with a sickening crack. I felt nothing. Eric, your dinner's in here. Thanks, Val. I don't know why. Like, I just had no care for Bob at all. But like when I read this part, I did get kind of like a morbid chuckle. Just like that's just the situation of just like, yeah, no, we're really just like this is the POV from like the monster's point of view. Of like the monster or specifically the monster's assistant, and just like, well, this is my lot. Well, it's a living.
Yeah, this is just a Tuesday, you know.
Yeah, like she's just dead inside from the shit she's had to do for this, which is sad because she in the backstory, like she started off as a kind soul, and then she's just because of that fucking senior. She just got like fucked in the situation. Though to be fair,
she could have said no.
Yeah,
like,
that
yes,
is true.
He offered all this, but she could have just said no if she knew what the hell she had to do.
She could have.
She has no one to blame but herself, honestly.
No, I think it's like her, mostly her, but like also senior for like doing this to her as well. But also like, yeah, money can be quite enticing for even like the even a semi-pure soul. So maybe not the purest of souls, but
how many years do you think she had to kill people every other week?
Yeah, I don't know. Like we don't have that. Yeah. It's like, and you can see like, well, based on how it's affecting her, I'd say it's been some time since this started.
Yeah.
Probably like in Eric's 20s. So.
Yeah. So 15 years of killing people every other week.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty bad.
Yeah. Yeah.
And for money. Wow.
I mean, that happened, dude. That's capitalism. Like that's
I know.
Economy. Like that's actually it's actually good for the story because it's also like probably intentionally, but maybe inadvertently, like adding a groundedness because like like capitalism and the gig economy is a thing and it's shitty and I hate it, but we all have to deal with it because that's what we're living. And it just ups the horror to be a little bit more realistic. Oh my! So this is it could not exactly, but this is kind of like an economic horror in a way because like she gets this like a bunch of money if she does this thing, but it's also grinding her soul to dust in the process.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, actually, my next thought was basically going to be like assistant to a cannibal, no real relationships. All the people I meet are food for him. I fell down and wept, not because of my sins, but because of my hopelessness. All because I wanted to help an elderly family friend. And I was like, yeah, Yeah, no, this is on you, but this is also on for me, like to me, this is also on Eric Hastings Sr. like doing this to you. Or at least like even offering you this job and tempting her with the money. And like I wonder, like he must have told, but yeah, also to your credit, gamer, he must have told her, right, about the requirement.
You would think, and that's why I say that like
Yeah.
she's kind of not redeemable because she's like, yeah, okay.
I don't know, like
It's fine.
we don't get. Unfortunately, the story actually. I guess that is something in the story. Like we don't really get if that was on the table at the start, or if that's something that she kind of like she agreed to, and then the NDA came off, and it's like, oh, by the way, now that you're contracted, this is another thing you have to do. Yeah, it makes me wonder, like if that was on the table from the get-go, or if that was something that like was hidden until she agreed.
Mm-hmm.
Or if it's something that Hastings the Third added because, like, she has to look
maybe.
after him, and it's
Yeah,
like, oh well, you're here for the money, then I can make you do whatever I want.
Yeah, like maybe Senior didn't even know about what his son and his grandson, like what they were afflicted with or what they've been doing. So, like, yeah, maybe this is something that like he didn't know about. He just knew that his son or his grandson specifically was a shithead, and like Val was this kind soul. So it's like, hey, maybe you should be his assistant because like my son just died, and my grandson's like being a complete and utter tool. Like he needs some guidance.
Yeah, like the grandfather Senior, his children always become like insane cannibalists that will auto cannibalize on age 35 or whatever. But he's a normal person. He's not a cannibal. He just like went on some adventure and got cursed or some shit. But he wasn't aware of it because like his two sons, one way or another, they somehow managed to keep it under wraps. Probably because they're rich and they have people to cover shit up for them.
Yeah, exactly.
It's just the junior son was more subtle with it, and he didn't leave a fucking mess and make everyone hate him.
Yeah.
So he kind of died on better terms with his father.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I could see. It'd be curious because, like, again, like we like, yeah, did Senior know, or was this like just sort of like he saw what everybody else saw about Eric Jr. and the third, and then when their handlers show up, like is like maybe that's why like the handler murdered Junior. But then like the third, like, yeah, it's like, so yeah, you should be my grandson's handler, because like he's too wild, he's too much of a wild party goer, and he needs some like guidance from a kind soul. It's like, okay, yeah, sure, I can do that. And then she gets into it and it's like, I can't escape.
Mm-hmm.
Like I just gotta last long enough for like to get that fortune. But yeah, so yeah, we don't know those situations. I guess like the story is almost too short for its own good at that because of that. Like we should maybe have gotten some more information about that. Maybe it'll come up in the sequel. We'll have to see. But I'll move on to the last thing I have here. He smiled and patted me on the back. It's sorry about earlier. If you want, I've still got some of him left. If you want to, I nodded, my eyes still puffy. Great. Love you, Val. He closed the door. I looked in the mirror and smiled. I was blushing. God, how I love him. What?
That's what I felt too. Not that I love him.
I mean, he has such a dreamy voice. But
that comes
through the text
so well.
Yeah. But yeah, like, is Val a cannibal too?
Honestly, I did not see that as her.
Okay.
Saying yes to joining in on the cannibalism.
Oh,
I saw that as like, okay, fine, you can do the thing you do while you eat, while I'm wearing this outfit,
Gotcha.
That's what I saw that as.
Okay, that makes more sense because I was like, well, maybe that's like, was she already a cannibal? Like maybe that was the connection in the family, but like with Senior and stuff like that. But okay, that makes
cannibal. She wouldn't have a problem doing
that. That's true. Yeah, that makes so much more sense actually. Like to read it that way.
Yeah.
But yeah, so also it seems like she finally caught, or maybe she already was affected by it and was just kind of in denial up until the end of the story. She caught the Stockholm, as in the Stockholm syndrome, because the story of the story, like, she hates this, like, she can't stand this. Like, I hates him. Why does he make me do this? And at the very end, like she gets a little bit, like a bit of kindness from him, and then she's like, "Oh, how I love him." It's like, oh, honey, you have either, like, this is either something that's been like brewing, something that you've been in denial about, or like it just, you finally just caught up to you, like,
Or
with all this
she's
like trauma.
what's that that term in Japanese anime of like the girl who like hates the protagonist but is actually in love with him? Yeah, it might be one of them situations.
Maybe, yeah. I feel like maybe, I don't think it's necessarily tsundere, but like there is another, like, there's probably another archetype like that, where like they hate, like they hate this whole thing, but they put up with it. But then, like, deep down, like I think what you're getting at is like they really do actually love the character or like love the person.
Yeah, it's kind of like a masochist sort of thing where it's they're doing something that they shouldn't like, but they do like it. I don't know.
Yeah, well, that's why I propose that it's like might be Stockholm syndrome, because like all the trauma and all the hardship, or like all the emotional burden of doing this and like luring people to him, and like him like being a monster and eating people and stuff like that in front of her, and like being perved on by him. She's now just kind of like gone into survival mode and like created this, like, now, like, it's like, no, I do love him. Yeah. I'm this, like that's sort of like a type of like helplessness in horror and stuff too, and like in real life, it's like when the character, like when like a spouse is being abused by their partner for like years and years or months or whatever, for long periods of time, and they eventually just like, no, I like, he, like, this is for the best, I love him, like, kind of thing, like the resentment suddenly becomes like acceptance and admiration out of survival and trauma.
Yeah,
like it's a psychological thing. But yeah, it had me curious about that as well. And the story does have a couple of things that are like, again, I want questions to, obviously.
You want answers to,
not
questions.
Yeah. They have questions that I want answers to, and I just hope that like maybe the sequel will give us a few more answers, because I do like the story, but I do feel like perhaps it was a bit short for its own good.
Yeah, definitely.
But yeah, that's my actual thoughts. So Mikey, these stands for evil.
Let's see here. So my first actual thought here is that I was really hoping for some supernatural, and like, but I mean, like a wolf or werewolf transformation, like something that makes him more feral, because I mean, she does clean up piss on the carpet, and that's something that a feral creature would do. And I mean,
you know what the piss might be? It might be the guy that's being eaten just being scared.
Yeah, that's also
it's
true.
Not necessarily his piss. She doesn't take it for DNA sampling.
Well,
yeah.
Either way, the thing is, once we get it's a cannibal reveal, and there's no wolf man or bear man, or
like it's more like see, it's interesting, because like I kind of perceived it like there's still a chance for me that there's supernatural, because like it could be a supernatural cannibal because of what happened to Junior, and what happens if he doesn't feed after every 2 weeks or so. And yes, he's still like very human in terms of like and in control at the near the end, like as he's like feeding, and as she's like, hey, he's here. But I kind of, it could still be perceived like he's like a ghoul, like a Lovecraftian ghoul kind of thing, where like they are like they get feral when they're feasting, but like even like even after they're done eating, or like done like chomping down, they still have control over some of their their mind. But
Correct
it
me
could also just
if
be
I'm
Hannibal Lecter.
wrong, but didn't he like rip his arm off?
He popped it out. It seemed like, or like he took a bite out of his neck. So yeah, because like Bob had like one hand, one leg, one arm limping like from to the side, and had like a bite wound in his neck. So it's either it feels like it could be supernatural or it could just be Hannibal Lecter.
Yeah. Yeah, his arm was hanging from the socket and his neck had a massive chunk bitten out of it, but he was still alive.
So maybe he is a monster of some like supernatural capacity.
It just doesn't show the transformation or nothing.
Yeah, and I guess like, and maybe there isn't much of one except for like he just his mouth expands or something, or like, or what have you. Certainly that could be maybe added, like a description of what he looks like when he goes feral. But
Mhm.
I think it might just be meant to be a human cannibal.
yeah, I'm on the fence honestly about like whether or not it is or not.
Well, the thing is, we don't get the clarification.
Yeah.
And because it leans into supernatural, but doesn't get far enough into it with, in my mind, a transformation of some kind.
Mhm.
My mind just went, well, he's a cannibal, and this isn't as cool as I want it to be.
Oh, yeah. No, that's a fair play. Yeah.
That being said, things that can happen in real life are sometimes scarier than anything that a supernatural safety blanket can do for you.
Yeah. But I mean, I don't know. I don't see this really happening in real life because, I mean, while cannibals exist, I'm pretty sure we'd know if people were going missing on a weekly or bi-weekly basis.
You have a very optimistic look at human trafficking and how when people go missing, like some people, like there's a whole swath of the population that are just known as like the forgotten, or just like
very high frequency in this story, though.
Yeah, but like also it is LA. it is Hollywood, so like people can go missing pretty, from what I've understand from like real world like stories and stuff like that about Hollywood, people can just disappear in that town.
Great.
Note to self: don't ever go to LA.
Yeah, basically.
And I don't. It's not. I'm not like. That's also not just LA. Like I've like basically any big major city. Like you're going to have those kind of situations. So
yeah.
Yeah.
And my other note here is why did Bob ask for help? Like,
maybe he didn't think that she was still in on it.
Well, but when he sees her, she's naked, except for the headband and glasses.
Did he see? Because didn't she poke her head out around the corner as like she heard him? And then he
stepped out. She stepped out enough that she could trip him.
Yeah, she then. Well, I assumed like she heard him coming down the hallway, like around the corner, looked over to see where he was, and then put her leg out as he was like running past the. So like he may not have actually seen her in that state. But yeah, he's also at that point like in a desperate situation and just like calling out for whoever like he thinks might be able to help at the time. So yeah,
that's true. All right. Oh, and that's in my actual thoughts.
Okay, on to Gamer.
Okay, so when I first started reading the story, first thing I see is the not safe for work at the top. And then start reading, and the character specifically says she's a virgin and works for a guy who's a supreme asshole. So, like, it put me in the mindset of, like, it basically paints the start of this with a really skeevy vibe that I wasn't enjoying reading. It just, it was, I don't know. It wasn't the overarching vibe I got from reading the whole story. Actually, is it's not necessarily a fun read. It's not really a scary read. It's just kind of a awkward and uncomfortable read. You know?
That's an interesting take, because I had the exact opposite, except for like when like she's actually stripping down and stuff like that. Like, to me, this was a fun horror-y kind of story. Like, but from the POV of like the monster or the serial killer kind of thing.
I don't know.
Yeah.
It was like the acceptance of Valerie, like being okay with doing this. That it was just kind of like, especially with the not safe for work warning at the top and all the other stuff. It just kind of painted it all in a very skeevy color. I don't know what color is skeevy, but
some kind. Honestly, don't take this to heart or anything. But honestly, I always kind of like when I think of skeevy, I do kind of think of a yellowing color.
I hate you.
But no, like that's fair. Like you're getting. It's interesting that you got that, because like I guess it's just kind of like shows like our different personalities. Because I read this and I was like, I actually thought that the I'm glad like the warning was up there, but it wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be.
It was worse than some of the other ones that I have had not safe for work stuff.
That's fair, but like
sometimes there's a not safe for work stuff just because the monster has breasts exposed or something like that.
Yeah,
that's it. But this goes like a lot worse with it.
I get like it references that he jerks off to her, or to the image of her and some of that, and like that's a little like risque, I suppose. Yeah. And like obviously like he gives off a very skeevy vibe, but like nothing is actually really shown. There's something that's told, but there's nothing shown.
The theater of the mind is sometimes a lot worse.
You're not wrong. It can be a boon and a curse. To reference a story we've done recently. A theater of the mind is a terrible curse. Or it can be a terrible curse.
Yes.
Yeah. But yeah, I just like, it's interesting that like you went into this with that kind of mentality of it. So
yeah, I don't enjoy reading super skeevy stories, is what I'm kind of finding out. But moving on.
Yeah.
Every 2 weeks, I lure an innocent person to Eric's trailer, house, wherever he is at the time, and I step out, I come back in to get rid of the skeleton he leaves behind. When I first read this, I had no idea of what he was or nothing, so I automatically went to vampire first, and I assumed that the quote-unquote skeleton was just referencing the drained body after, but it actually ended up being cannibal, so it's like actual skeleton. However, I don't know if this might be technically grammar. I don't know if it should be saying skeleton, it should say bones.
Yeah, because honestly, I had originally vampire, but then the skeleton thing came up, and I was like, or is it like Melina or like one of those characters just like
fatality?
Yeah, just fatality eats.
Pulls out a full skeleton that's still connected.
Yeah,
it's
like
silly.
Well, because that was my mentality going into reading this story, is like I was getting some like dark humor and like morbid humor vibes from this entire story. So I was kind of just in that was in my headset or my headspace for this. So I was envisioning, like just like a full like clean like cleaned skeleton,
or like, straight up Looney Tunes style.
Yeah, or at the very least some blood and viscera still on the skeleton. But
yeah, I think bones would be better for that, unless he doesn't like eat he doesn't eat the person head to toe. So like there's enough stuff there that it's still connected.
Yeah.
But it's like all the main meat's gone.
Honestly, he could if he is like he could also still be a vampire, just in the more like traditional sense, not like that Hollywood sense. But because in traditional vampire lore, they don't just like you get 2 bite marks in your neck and they siphon. No, they rip out your throat and eat you.
Well, of course, Hollywood had to change it and make it sexy.
Yeah, exactly. And we all know where that evolution went down. I'm not referencing it this episode.
You just did.
I mean, I'm not specifically saying. I'm not calling it out. I'm not specifically saying the name this episode.
Okay, fine. But I'll move on from that Twilight reference.
God damn it!
So then we get to the point where Valerie's just openly bringing victims for Eric to feast on and all that, and she's okay with it because his dad wasn't an asshole to her. And like, if in this alternate universe this is the norm, it's probably illegal, but still the norm, then okay, I understand why she's going along with it so easily, because it wouldn't be overly weird in that universe. But I feel like there should be a lot more resistance to her doing these things. Aside, she's being annoyed by it the same way that you would ask someone to go pick up milk for you at the store.
Yeah.
Like, it inconveniences them. That's the most feeling I got for this, is just it's an inconvenience that she has to put up with.
Mhm.
And then go ahead.
Okay, I just because I want to just explain so here, and honestly, like I'm actually going to defend your perspective on this. I do think that you're negating the fact that she's been doing this for a while, but I also think that the story should maybe have had some like her still like, because she reflects on her own, like the possibility of her own funeral when she's driving out to Hollywood Walk of Fame. Maybe we could have had also like a flashback of like the early days of when she was like how this used to actually like how she didn't like when she first started doing this, she didn't know how to cope or even like how she was going to be able to keep doing this for money. Like show that decline in morality.
Because we have no sense of time over this. Like, this could be like in the first month still. Like, this could be month 2, 3, who knows? Or it could be 10 years into it. We have no idea. Based on the end and how like done with it she is, it's been years for sure, but we don't really have a good sense of time.
Yeah, I think that's what the story would definitely benefit from, is just establishing how long she's been doing this and like how much of her humanity she's been sacrificing for a really, really, really good paycheck at the end.
Yeah.
Because again, money will make, like, to me, like this makes like I can see the helplessness, but also the greed and the like what because people are willing to do shitty things like killing other people for money. Look at mercenaries. Look at soldiers. Look at like all manner of there's all manner of like people out there that this would appeal to them, or this would be like, I could do this.
The start of the story paints her like she's a goddamn angel.
Yeah,
and that's why Senior wanted her to take care of the third of Eric 3, because she's nice and she'll lead him on the straight and narrow. Meanwhile, if everyone was aware that he's a cannibal and he's doing this shit, Senior should be finding like someone who's cold-hearted and just cares about the money, because someone who's cold-hearted and just cares about the money will keep this completely under wraps, do it efficiently, get it done. There won't be any second guessing. You chose the worst person to do this, honestly.
And I again, it helps for what you said earlier, where it's like, what if he doesn't know about this? So like, I feel like maybe that could be brought up a little bit more, of like, he thought he was just like a regular shithead, like actor kid, or like nepo baby, and that's why he got her. And then when she got the job and found out the dark secret, she got trapped in this situation.
You know what I just thought of?
Yeah.
Wonder if Eric the Third is the reason that Eric Jr. exploded on his 35th birthday.
Oh.
Like, basically, on the 35th birthday, the son will take over the inheritance of Senior.
Yeah.
So the third went and killed him, his older brother, on his older brother's birthday, so he couldn't take the fortune.
Well, it wouldn't have been his older brother; it would have been his dad.
Sorry, right?
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. No, it's okay.
God. 3 people named Eric Hastings. My brain.
Yes. Trust me, I understand.
Yes.
I think that's why we had an issue with the rundown earlier. Eric Hastings.
That being said, if the third killed Junior when Junior wasn't even 35, then how young did Junior have a kid?
Yeah, well, yeah, Junior could have had the kid like in his 20s or something like that. Yeah. But yeah, it's still odd.
Yes. It's possible, though. Because if you're like a super-powered, weird, ghoulish cannibal, even if you're like a freaking 10-year-old, I'm sure you could still kill someone if you're supernaturally powered, you know?
Actual cannibal, Eric Hastings.
Yes. Nice actual cannibal Shia LaBeouf reference.
Sorry, it just like popped right in there. Oh,
Yeah.
This has been the episode, and like when I was taking my notes of me just like things just popping into my head and like having to get them out from it. So yeah,
We all know you're a bard.
yeah,
Very song focused. But yeah, that's about all I got to say on that part. Because aside from just what I said before, where like I can't really connect with Valerie as a character because I can't. She's supposed to be really nice, but she ends up being really horrible, and that's like this tragic story of this story, I guess. But I don't know.
Yeah,
I just couldn't connect with that.
I think the reason why is because there wasn't enough here for you to like get in and like see that like her kindness or like see her like her sincerity or like her humanity breaking.
Yeah, it comes and goes so fast.
Yeah,
that we don't get to see much.
Yeah, because we're at the tail end of her humanity, like finally like tipping over the edge. So
yeah, the only thing we have to say that she's nice is her saying that that senior said that she's nice.
Yeah,
that's about it. And then
I mean, to be fair, she did feel bad about like almost getting pulling in a guy who had a family and stuff. So like
yeah, but that could just be because there'd be more people asking about him.
Wow. So like I'm interpreting that as like, oh well, like yeah, she's actually still like guilty about like doing this kind of stuff. You're just like, no, she's just calculating.
100%, because it said earlier that she only goes after people who don't have any connections, really, people that won't be missed.
That's true.
So that's why she said that she slipped up there almost.
That's true, but like also she does, but and I'm latching on more on the fact that she won't like her thing is like not going after like not bringing like prostitutes to him because like and I'm interpreting that as like, well, like they've already had it rough as it is, like not also like to like let them just get slaughtered. So yeah. No, that makes sense. Like you're pulling in like it's like, you know, like you're showing evidence that's in the story about her being a lot more calculating and cold than how I'm seeing it as like her morality is like fraying and like she does have some kind of a moral code, if not like it's breaking. So interesting.
But again, a time frame would help with this, because if this was killing 2 and she was thinking like this, that's different to this being kill 30. You know?
Yeah.
If she's still holding on to her humanity for a very long time, then I would care more about her.
Yeah, that's fair.
But it's hard to tell. And then we get to the ending where there's a quote-unquote twist of her saying that she loves Eric. And it's just like, I hated reading that.
Aww.
The whole time I was trying to sympathize with her character, and I was really struggling with it. And then just final nail it off in there.
That's unfortunate.
Yeah. Because, like, I don't think that is the moment where she switched to actually caring. She probably cared about him the entire time. That's part of the reason why she's still willing to go with all this, you know?
Yeah. So your take is that she's a tsundere, or like that trope of like they like, oh, this is so fucking annoying, I hate him, and then like really deep down, or like really like underneath that is like they actually do love the person.
Yeah, of course. Early on, she was swooning at his voice on the freaking phone.
I mean, I didn't. Yeah, fair enough.
He said you swooned at his text on the phone too.
God. But like I also interpret that as like she's starting to like break down. Like it's starting, the Stockholm syndrome starting to take.
Yes, which is
how I
also
see that.
another view of it for sure.
Yeah.
Which is also believable.
But yours is also as believable because like I do see your point of view as like, yeah, she does seem like throughout the story that she could be perceived as very unlikable.
She's a murderer.
In a light. Yeah. Well, she's indirectly murdering people.
Yeah.
Actually, in some cases, she does
directly. Actually, with Bob.
Well, and to be fair, that could have been a mercy kill for Bob.
No, I think that's because he was about to get out and have other people see shit.
Yeah, exactly. That it could also be that too. So it's like the story is kind of like it's sort of playing with like ambiguity as to like people's motives and what the situation's actually about.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, that's about everything I got to say there.
All right.
Like at the end, it's just basically everything she's been saying has been a lie the whole time. Like even if the whole like she's always loved him situation, unless it's a Sundari situation, but like just because it's lie after lie, it's like it keeps. The more I read the story, the more it kept painting Valerie in a worse and worse light for me personally. And that's my main problem with this is when you read a horror story, you have to care about the main character, even if they're not the one being killed, you know?
Sometimes in horror, like in stories, yes, but in horror, sometimes like you can be like they can just be like a hate read. Or just like or just a disgust read layer, like you're just disgusted by what's going on, but like that's the point. Like you're not supposed to empathize with the character.
Yeah,
like you're not supposed to empathize with Freddy Krueger.
I suppose not. But she's also not meant to be the Freddy Krueger in this, even though she kind of is.
She's kind of like half Freddy Krueger.
Yeah.
Like yeah, you know what I mean. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. They're unfortunately a buddy horror duo.
This is kind of a buddy horror, actually.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Oh, I'm sorry that you don't like the buddy horror aspect of it.
Just like the skeeve.
Yeah.
I could do without the skeeve.
Like, I honestly, for me, what's really kind of pulling with the skeeve stuff is like I didn't perceive her like getting into a maid costume or anything like that for cleaning. It really felt like she just like went completely nude, except for that headband. Like, is that what's going on, or am I misreading it?
But that was at the end.
Yeah, like
when she was cleaning, I think it didn't say anything about her stripping down. Then
no, like when she talked about like that's the thing about like the skew stuff is like when she was talking about it earlier and like how she would like have to clean up after him and he'd just like look at her like all like predatorily and stuff like that. I just assumed she was in her regular clothes doing that, and then she strips down in the house, and that's when like the tone shifted for me. I was like, oh shit, like she has to go do this nude, and then like
kind of
the
assumed that all along with me.
Yeah, and then with the headband, like you kind of brought up like that she gets into like a getup, and I was like, honestly, I think that might make it better in terms of like not being as skeevy because like at least she's in some kind of a clothing and like not just in front of him and stuff like that. I don't know, like it.
She's literally just wearing a headband and her glasses because she already had the headband on.
Yeah,
she didn't put it on as a costume. She had the glasses and the headband on with her pantsuit before.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, like honestly, like that the whole like her stripping down to like have to clean is like kind of made all that worse. Like for me, like in terms of darker tone of skeeviness. But yeah, but that's all you have then.
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay. Well, on to final thoughts. You guys haven't swayed me. I'm sorry. Because I still...
I get it. It's a female protagonist. I understand.
How fucking dare you? It has nothing to do with that. Because this is why I liked the story. Like, and maybe, again, I think it's just because, like, I like humor in horror. And I really got that kind of, like, this kind of, like, morbidly quirky vibe from the story. and there are some moments where things get real in terms of like creepy scenes. I would probably honestly compare the story to, like, in terms of its like feeling and like how it's like constructed and stuff like that, to like a modern horror comedy, something like Day Shift or Night Teeth from like recent memory, where things are taken seriously enough in the setting and in the backdrop and such, and there's horror clearly present in the scenes and in the themes of what's going on and circumstances, but there's also a healthy dose of morbid and dark humor that's splashed in for an edge of levity and like dry humor, like I kind of got from the story. Like, I don't know, like when the survivor when Bob is like trying to escape and she just like trips him and kills him by accident, and she's just like, I feel nothing, and it's like I got a chuckle from that, like in a horrible morbid way, and like I think maybe it's just because I'm desensitized or I watch a lot of horror movies and shit, so like this felt like one of those kind of like horror movies where like they splash in that kind of dark humor.
Yeah.
Because we're basically like POVing a Renfield or like the servitor of a monster, like of a serial killer who's like helping along. Because if not, like, oh, first they'll get a ton of money if they go through all this, and money corrupts, and like she's being corrupted by that. But also like she's been at this for a while, it seems. And so like you're seeing her helplessness and her humanity break down through the story. So I really dug that. And it's one of the reasons it's the reason I'm willing to recommend this story. I'm also very curious and looking forward to the sequel, because I do think the story does suffer from short story syndrome.
Yeah, it needs more.
Yeah, there needs to be a little bit more like I would like some more like details on like the circumstances.
Speaking of Disney princesses, you
I
must
know
have more.
I must have more. But yeah, so that's my final thoughts. I'm still recommending it. Mikey, D stands for evil.
Well, I'm going to agree with Gamer about the skeeviness. That's also something I didn't really care for. And it is throughout, which is probably why I really wanted there to be some supernatural stuff ingrained in the story, but we get cannibal, and I'm like, disappointment.
We get actual cannibal Shia LaBeouf.
But Shia LaBeouf can do jujitsu, so I mean, that would have made this story so much better if there was jujitsu.
Yeah, I do feel like I will, like, on top again, not to take over or anything, but yeah, the getting a description of him being like a monster of some kind, like as he's chasing Bob, what might have helped with that, or like maybe at least clarify that yes, this is a cannibal, like he's just a regular human.
Yeah. Yeah, so that being said, like I sort of saw the love thing at the end, because I mean it's a love-hate relationship. So we got the hate to begin with, and then the love at the end.
Yeah, he's this guy, but I love money.
But yeah, I still don't recommend reading the story.
All right, fair enough. And Gamer.
Well, as I said before, couldn't really connect with the character too much along the way. I wanted to sympathize with her, but she just kept doing stuff that made me not sympathize with her. You know what would have helped is if there was a scene where she just didn't take a guy over there. It's like, look, I need to get out of this. I want out of it. But we don't get any of that because of how short the story is. We missed all of her character building or destruction, perhaps, of her going from a nice person to a cold and dead murder assistant, basically.
Yeah.
So because you don't see that downfall, you don't know the character and their backstory and stuff. It's like if you watch a superhero movie and a bad guy shows up. He's a bad guy, and the heroes defeat him. But you don't know anything about him. You don't know why he's a bad guy. You don't know what he's trying to do. You just know, I'm here, I'm bad, I'm fighting you guys. Now I'm dead. Like, that's basically how this felt.
Yeah.
You know, I can kind of to put a superhero like analogy to it. It's the difference between the Rhino in the Amazing Spider-Man sequel, I think it is, or the Sandman in Spider-Man 3, like the Raimi Spider-Man movies.
Mm-hmm.
The Rhino is this like thug who Spider-Man beats up in
Rhino suit, right? Like a mech suit.
And then he gets a mech Rhino suit, and like he's just bad. he's just there at the end, and like just get the final like final credit shot against Spider-Man. And then, but that's it. Like that's all we get about Rhino in the Amazing Spider-Man 2. In Spider-Man 3, the Raimi movies, Sandman is a criminal, but he's being a criminal to support, because it was the only way he knew how to support his dying or very sick child. Yes. And then he got trapped in like a particle accelerator and became Sandman. Like I get what you're saying, like that for the analogy of that is like it's the difference between like finding it, like we do need, I do think the story would definitely benefit from having a little bit more backstory on Val's suffering, or like her or how like she got how things started out versus like now we're here.
Like, yeah, I think this might be a couple episodes in a row, but we need to see the character suffer more.
Yeah.
I think I said that last week too, but it's the truth, because that's where you see character development.
Yeah.
Well, and another thing was, would it help if we knew how old Eric the Third was, so that we know how much longer she has to do this?
Yeah, because that's where I was thinking with the 35. Like, is it when he turns 35, or should it be till he hits 35?
What's the difference?
Well, the difference is like if it's till 35, she has a timeline, because then he's like probably like in his 20s.
I see.
And she's like a late 20s something person that's doing this.
Yeah.
It's like that's what I was like kind of thinking at the beginning of the story when it was doing the whole like age 35 thing. It was like I was questioning whether like because she started this at 35 or at him being 35.
The way I saw that is she has to do this until she has to make sure he survives to his 35th birthday, and if he does that, great. Then she gets the fortune.
Yeah.
He has assigned me to Eric's caretaker. Oh, when he turned 35.
Yeah, that's what it says.
Fuck, I saw it backwards the whole time.
But like no, but like it still has the point there, because like I feel like it should be till 35, because at least at that point like there's a timeline. We don't know how long she just has to keep him alive from going into an early grave. Like, okay, so like when's that?
Yeah, and so she has to do this for the rest of her life.
Basically, dies, and then she gets the fortune. Like, great, love that.
So she just might die of old age, or just die from the circumstance of trying to keep him alive and not see this fortune at all.
This might be a typo.
I don't know.
If
I managed to keep him from an early grave, I would receive his entire fortune.
Yeah, like that's like. Like, and this is coming from the guy who likes this and does recommend this story. But yeah, like it's like I think that needs to be clarified. That needs to be looked at a little bit more and maybe tweaked a little bit.
Because at that point, originally I thought she just had to do this till he's 35, gets the fortune, bounces, she's out. But she's signing up to do this for the rest of her life. Yeah,
at least that's what it seems like. If after 35 is correct,
yes.
Which I don't know. Like, SerenaWrites, if you could please clarify in another email or what have you. Like if that's like Is this an issue or is this something that was intended?
Unfortunately, I misread that as until 35. I don't know how the hell I did that, but so be it. Probably because it mentioned that the brother died when he was 35.
The
So
father.
then the father died when
Yeah.
he's 35. So
Yeah.
then the grandfather's like, just keep him alive until he's at least 35.
Yeah, and that makes
I
sense.
don't need
but the way-
I don't need him dying even younger than his father did.
Yeah, see, and that's what makes sense to me. Like it makes more sense to me that it's a until 35 rather than like when he turns 35.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Either way.
Ugh.
That aside,
Yeah.
the whole concept of the story and everything is good, honestly. It's just the way it's presented and the shortness of it is what made me not recommend this. But with some tweaks, I could recommend this, and I am curious to see how this goes. It's just I personally didn't like the presentation of what we got.
Fair. Yeah, we'll have to see how the sequel turns out. I think it's called Assistant to Mr. Hastings, the Academy Awards is what it's called. Yeah, we'll be covering that next week. So.
Yeah, that's it for my final thoughts, because that's what we were doing.
Yep. Yeah, wow, we got lost in the
A little lost in the weeds there, but that's fine. We brought up stuff that we didn't really talk about before.
Mm-hmm. That'll do it for this week's episode. One recommendation and two non-recommendations. A
Mine's technically tangential
recommendation if the story gets tweaked and stuff like that. So, which I mean, again, Serena sent us these stories so that we could discuss them and critique them. So, this is our editing work, or these are our notes.
That's why we call that section notes.
Exactly.
Actual thoughts.
Yep.
Right, you call it actual thoughts. I literally have it in my notes as notes.
Yeah, well, everything in my thoughts is basically notes, and like thoughts are like basically like how like is a type of like critiquing notes and stuff like that. Anyway, that'll do it for tonight. If you like what you heard, or if you didn't, leave us a comment in the comment section below where this gets posted. We're all on Twitter mostly. Mikey is at the E stands for evil. The Gamer in Yellow is at the Gamer in Yellow, but without that W at the end because it's too damn long.
I don't have a choice at this point.
I'm at Review Cultist. I'm also on Blue Sky at Review Cultist, so you can check me out there. You can also send us emails at aldenterigamortis@gmail.com. That's ALDENTERIGAMORTIS@gmail.com, where you can also leave us suggestions for other creepypastas, SCPs, spooky things. You creep it, we'll peep it. Yeah! And if you'd like to help support our show financially, you can go to Patreon. Like the back tier you'd like to support us at, we have $2 and $5 tiers with special episodes, early access, extra content. To all our patrons that are helping support the show, thank you immensely. You're helping keep those hosting bills at bay. And as always, we very much appreciate that. And to our listeners and the authors of these stories, thank you immensely, because without your listenership, it'd be like screaming into the void. And without your stories that you write and post and even share with us via emails to discuss on our show, we really wouldn't have much of a show because we'd have nothing to talk about. So thank you. Until next time, I have been your host, Review Cultist.
I'm Mikey. The E stands for evil.
And I'm the Gamer in Yellow.
And this has been Al Dente Rigamortis. Sleep well.